Hey guys, how are you? I wanted to jump online today to talk about consecration. I don't know what was going on, but when I was on my way to Mass today, I just started getting just some more revelation concerning consecration, concerning our altars that we set up. Yesterday I made a post. I posted and I said, show me your altar and I'll point you to the deity that you worship. That many times that we speak words with our mouths, but our actions are the things that truly reveal what we worship. And sometimes we don't realize that we're sacrificing, making offerings to the altar of a different deity, knowingly or unknowingly. And the principles that govern the spirit realm does not care about ignorance. As long as the principles are at play, Satan, who is a legalistic demon, will use whatever it is that we give him as an open door to come into our lives. So today, I'm going through a test, a very major test. But I want to talk a bit about consecration. There are things that I believe that, when we're at church and we have pastors and teachers that preach and teach us certain things. But I really am someone who believes in when you're being taught by the Lord, he not only teaches you and gives you revelation, opens up your eyes, but he actually walks you through it. Like you live out whatever he's teaching. And when it comes to consecration, and the Hebrew word for consecration means kadash. It's being set apart, being set apart from the rest for a holy purpose, to be sanctified, to be made clean. God sanctifies and consecrates every single person that belongs to him. There is always a season of consecration that we go through. Our entire life is a life of consecration, but there are times that in intimacy with God, he takes us even deeper into consecration. So today he's doing that with me. And what I want to share with people is that there is always a cost to consecration. There really is. Last year I had shared how when the Lord had met me, and this is the season, this holy week was when the Lord started really dealing with me, started talking to me. This is the week that I died and he transformed and resurrected me. One of the things that he gave me last year was to stop watching TV shows, movies, TV shows. And when I say movies, ever since it's been, I think, 16 months, I've only watched House of David, which I watched a couple of weeks ago. And I've watched War Room, which is a Christian movie. And then I've watched The Forged. And these are movies that I know the Lord was like, yep, you can watch this. But I have not watched any other shows. And I never fully understood the reason why. I had an idea, but this weekend, he really just made it make sense to me. So many of us have had altars that have been built to different deities. And when I say deities, I mean that the deities of old, the same small gods that God displayed his glory and demolished in Egypt, are the same gods that exist till today. Ashraf and Baal, these are all the same gods that exist today. They just show up in a different way, but the worship and the offerings that they demand are the same. They show up in different ways, and many times we don't even know that we sacrifice on the altars of these gods. And we have altars that we're building in our lives, not knowing that that's what we're doing. So what I want to do is to give a testimony of what this looks like and what the Lord is doing with me today. And I want to tell you, I am going through sorrow today. And at the same time, my spirit is at absolute peace and joy, but sorrow at the same time. So 3 years ago or 4 years ago, I started working on a project. I started working on a business. You guys may have seen it pop up a couple of times. And in the beginning, when I was trying to start the business, the reason why I wanted to start the business was because of where I was mentally, and the life, just the struggles that I had gone through mentally, and I wanted to create something that was being birthed out of like just teaching people how to like love themselves. My right eye was not healthy. meaning that I did not have the light of the living God inside of me. I was deceived and living a life that was just, it was just all about like self. It was all about like self growth. It was all about behavioral modification. It was just all about like me trying to change me. I was not surrendered to God at all. So when I started this business, I had to come up with a name, and it, with the help of my husband, we came up with the name 𝐻ERA. And I'm thinking back now, like wondering, why did I pick that name? And I remember that I thought that the name had to do with, women and beauty and all of that. And I felt like, yes, this really jives with what I'm trying to do. Now, I had no pricking in my spirit. I had no, there was nothing happening in my conscience concerning the name of this business. And I started building. The thing is, I didn't know that I was building on a very faulty foundation, because 𝐻ERA is the name of a Greek goddess. 𝐻ERA is the name of a deity that people worship. 𝐻ERA is the goddess of marriage, is the goddess of fertility. And it's like, now that I'm reading on it, I'm confused and shocked that I would pick such a name. But I kept building, spent thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars building. But somehow I could not, when I was done with the foundation, meaning I had spent money in branding everything, shipping material, the shipping stickers, my labels for all my products, and I loved my branding. But somehow, right before I was about to launch, I can't like put a finger on what it was, but I just couldn't like launch. And this was probably one business in my life that I had really pushed through the phase of like the hype and the excitement, and then like put in the grind. But when it was time to like fully launch, I don't know, just something, I don't know what it was, but just something just kept like stopping me from actually launching. I would say, okay, this is the launch date, but I just would never do it. Last year, after the Lord got a hold of me, one of the things that he had told me to do was to put a pause on 𝐻ERA. 2 years ago, he told me to put a pause on the course that I was building. I didn't understand why, but I just abandoned and left 𝐻ERA alone, and thought, okay, Lord, whenever you're ready to talk to me concerning this business, you tell me. Because after Easter last year, and I gave my life, rededicated it right back to God, what I told him was, my money isn't mine, my business isn't mine, my life isn't mine, my will is not mine. I'm giving it all back to you. You determine, you decide, you point, and I'm gonna move. Whenever you're in church watching, or you're watching sermons, pastors will constantly teach about consecration. They'll teach about surrender. They'll teach about picking up your cross and following God. But the truth is, many times when you hear it like with your ears. You hear it intellectually, but a lot of times it may not actually pierce into the heart. The only time it gets into the heart is when God's grace peels off the veil and you catch a revelation. So last year, I caught a glimpse of a revelation, and that was a revelation that I had knowingly and ignorantly picked the name of a Greek god for my business. And then the question is, who do you worship? Who do you worship? At what altar am I placing the offerings and sacrifices for the business I'm building? I didn't know. Ignorantly, I was putting it on the altar to 𝐻ERA. 𝐻ERA is the goddess of marriage and the goddess of fertility. If I begin to tell my testimony of the areas of my life that have been under bondage, marriage, and fertility. Today, my eyes are like so open to see how far deceived I had gone. But anyway, 2 days ago, the Lord started talking to me about altars in a way that he's never talked to me about altars before. And the one thing that he told me was that altars that are built to God are a response to his love, to his mercy, to his providence, to his provision. Altars that we build to deities come from self. I heard that when I was in the shower. I didn't know that it made sense to me, but I just remembered going, huh? And then I sat down. It was at night. I turned off my TV, jumped on my bed, took my Bible, opened it, and started reading and studying and researching. And yes, that was the truth. Every altar that was built by the men of old that loved the Lord, they all built altars as a response to God's goodness. Noah built one after God delivered him through the flood. The moment he came out of the ark, he built an altar to the Lord. Jacob, when he had stolen his brother's birthright and was going to his uncle Laban's house, he met the Lord, passed through a place where heaven had met earth, had a dream or a vision where he saw angels coming down in a ladder, and he named that place Bethel and built an altar there. Abraham built multiple altars as a response to the promise that God gave him concerning Isaac, and built an altar as a response to the dream that he received when God called on him to sacrifice his only son. And that was an altar to obedience. I didn't know that I was building an altar to Hera. So when God had been teaching me about altars 2 days ago and then yesterday, my cousin picked up the phone and called me. What she didn't know was that 5 minutes before she called me, I was on the phone with another sister of mine, and we were joining in for like our evening prayers. And when she was going to pray, I told her, hey, we need to pray concerning altars. We need to pray concerning the altars that we have all built, the ones that we know, but mostly the ones that we do not know, the ones that we're not aware of, for the Holy Spirit to bring it back to our awareness so that we can take an axe and destroy them. Be careful what you pray for, because Jesus will answer you. 5 minutes later, my cousin calls me Chigi, and she's my prayer partner, my destiny helper, my sister in the Lord. She loves God. So she calls me that she was in the shower, and the Lord spoke to her as well and told her to call me to tell me and bring my attention back to the word Hera. And she was telling me how there's no way that the Lord will permit me to build a business on the name of another deity. Who do I serve? And that the Lord was calling me to demolish everything that I had built. I knew this day was coming because the Lord had already showed me about the name almost a year ago. But I wasn't sure what he was going to ask me to do with it. I thought he was going to kind of like repurpose it, or like, you know, we can coin it to mean something else. That's not God's way. Time and time again, he will always destroy everything that is built on another God, because he will never share the glory with anyone else. He just will never. But the thing is that pastors and sermons and stuff, they will teach this stuff, but when it's time to live it out, there is a major cost that comes with loving God. So now he has asked me to destroy everything that I built. I have cried and cried yesterday. I have cried, you know, the cry of like, oh God, this is not fair. But we all go through tests. We all go through trials. And majority of them is to test of our obedience. When we say we love the Lord, do we really? So this is what I designed. It took me almost a year, a lot of hard work, a lot of extra shifts at work, to come up with it. And now the Lord has asked for it. So I have, I don't know, maybe 20 boxes of these. And today they get trashed. I have these, of course, for packaging. And they were all branded as well. I have boxes and boxes. And he has asked for that as well. All my labels, every single label, I have to trash that as well. So today when I was going to church, this is what he was telling me. He was telling me about consecration and says that when we begin our walk with him, for every time that we are obedient, for every time we give him our yes, for every time we surrender, it takes us deeper into intimacy. It fine-tunes our ears to hear him. He says that there are seasons of consecration that we go through in our lives. There is the consecration that will happen because of our weakness. For example, Moses getting so upset that he kills an Egyptian. And because of that and fear, he runs away from Egypt and then ends up at a man's house where he gets married and ends up being a shepherd for years and years and years. It's not that he just decided, oh, I want to leave Egypt. It was his anger and his lack of control that God used as a sign of his mercy to consecrate and separate him from that empire of Egypt. There are times that consecration will happen because of somebody else's weaknesses. Take Joseph, who's living in his father's house, young kid, doesn't know anything, his father's favorite. And then because God plants in him a vision that his family is just like, they're pissed at. His family, his brothers get envious and jealous of him and then plan to kill him. But because of God's mercy, instead of them killing him, God takes him and moves him into slavery. There are times in our lives that you end up in places of bondage and you will think that the Lord isn't there, not knowing that the Lord orchestrated it all. God's ways are way beyond our ways. His thoughts are way beyond our thoughts. The moment we think we can fully discern this sovereign God is the day that we've been so puffed up with pride. And then he told me that there is another level of consecration where all he has to do is give you a word. All he has to do is give you a dream. But because you have been walking with him, your response would be immediate obedience. And this would be like Abraham, who after 25 years of waiting for his promised son, despite the fact that he had made another son outside of God's plan, God then gives him a dream and demands of the same son for him to go and kill his son. The very next morning, he gets up and goes to go kill him. I was watching Apostle EC. If you don't know about her, you should listen. You should find her online on YouTube. I was watching her months ago, and one of the things that she had mentioned was like, oh goodness, because of what she knows now, there are some prayers that she doesn't want to pray. An example of one of those prayers would be, Father Lord, give me a faith like Abraham. I remembered hearing her and I said, I don't want to run away from praying that. So Father, give me a faith like Abraham. But guess what though? For you to have a faith like Abraham, you have to go through seasons like Abraham did. You have to go through waiting seasons like he did. For you to have a faith like Abraham, you have to be willing to walk in places of obedience despite the things that are being cut off from you. To have a faith like Abraham, you have to go through a crushing. But many times, the crushing, why do I have to trash everything? Why do I have to trash everything? This is my life, the time, energy, creativity, all of that I have to destroy. Why do I have to do this? And I just hear him say, because you asked and now you are receiving. So the question is, were you praying in vain, or did you mean every word? I'm recording this for the person who is being faced with something similar. The temptation is that you're going to want to talk yourself out of it. The temptation is that Satan is going to come and whisper and make you feel like, no, no, no. Kind of like he did with Eve. No, 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 no. That's not what God said. God didn't say that if you eat the fruit of the tree of good and evil that you'll die. Instead, if you eat it, your eyes are going to open and you're going to be just like him. Discern. And if you're not sure, ask the Lord to confirm it. I asked the Lord to confirm, and the only thing he confirmed was that he wasn't giving me another sign. The only thing that he confirmed was the fact that when he spoke to Abraham, Abraham obeyed the next day. And was I willing to obey just like that? So I said, yes, I am. The consolation is that because, he never will just rip you apart and tear you down without giving you a little glimpse of something. The consolation is that now I know his finger is in this business, that the foundation of this business is going to be built on him. And he gave me a new name for the business. Immediately I saw the name, I knew. So this recording is just to mark the death to Hair Essentials and a rebirth of something new, something different, something consecrated, and something that would be of worship to the God that I serve and love. So thank you guys for listening. Bye.